everyone, welcome to Coffee Crop Chat. My name is Michelle Borges and I'm in the College of Agriculture as a graduate student. Here today we have two individuals from Sunbow Produce, so I'll have them introduce themselves.
I'm Nate Johnson.
I'm Yadira Ruiz, and we are the owners and operators of Sunbow Produce.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you farm here?
Yeah, we have a diversified organic fruit and vegetable farm.
Over 70 different crops is what we
Okay.
grow, depending on the season.
Where is your farm located?
So we're here just outside of Corvallis on the edge of Philomath.
Okay. How long have you been in this industry?
Well, I'd say I got into this industry as an apprentice 10 years ago. And so we took the business on. We started Sunbow Produce in 2015.
Yeah, and I, again, started the same year that Nate did here at this farm. Before that, had done an internship through an independent organization in Washington State that no longer exists, but did a 6-month internship at an transitioning to organic blueberry farm. And before that, had done some volunteer work at a couple of organic farms in Illinois. But my career as a farmer is pretty new compared to the rest of my professional life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are your crops here organic?
Everything that we grow is certified organic.
Can you explain to our audience a little bit about what that means to be certified organic?
Sure.
So that means that we have to adhere to a pretty strict regimen of crop inputs and crop management practices, and that means that we can't use any sprays, pesticides, herbicides, just things that are on a real limited list of approved substances. And so we have to keep pretty regular records of what we plant, where, what soil amendments we might add, fertilizers, things like that, compost, our harvest records, our sales records, and we have to get inspected once a year and have our certificate renewed
Every year, yeah.
yearly. Yeah.
Okay. So talking a little bit more about the crops, are crops like these grown all around Oregon, or do you feel like this is the best place for them where we are at?
I think you can grow these crops, especially with some of the tools we use for covering protected culture. You can grow a lot of these crops all over Oregon, and if you have the right, if you have the right season for it and the right tools to do it. But the Willamette Valley makes it pretty easy. It's pretty mild generally, and you can grow year-round. We do grow year-round.
What kind of crops do you grow in the summer and the spring?
Well, things that love to grow in the warm, so things that people seek readily, like tomatoes, sweet peppers, berries, fruits. Those
Peas.
Sweet peas,
Yep.
snap peas.
Mm.
Yeah, those are things that if we could grow year-round, we would. They're very popular.
Okay. What does like general harvest look like? I know it's different for every crop, but if you could just talk a little bit more about how you just harvest some of the crops and some of the vegetables.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Dita.
Okay. Well, I'd like to really talk about how our harvesting system is pretty unique. We don't terminate crops when we harvest, typically, unless it's a head of cabbage or something that when you take it, it's done. Usually, we will harvest the leafy greens in a way that will allow the plant to continue to live.
It's called cut and come again.
Cut and come again for leafy greens. But then also things like new potatoes, we will hand dig new potatoes. So we'll take maybe loosen the soil a little bit with a fork or a shovel, but more often than not, we're literally just digging kind of like a dog around the plant and getting those fresh little baby potatoes out with our hands and then covering the plant back up, hilling it up, and then watering it so that it will continue to put out more of those little potatoes. So that's kind of a unique approach, but then there are definitely the kinds of harvest that we do where if you harvest it, the plant is done. So a head of celery you'll harvest your main head of celery, and it might put out side shoots, and more often than not, we're not going to wait for those side shoots to make new celery heads, because that space is precious and celery grows really slowly. But with things like broccoli, you can harvest that main crown and it'll put out side shoots that you can then harvest for what we call broccoli florets. So
and then you can get the leaves at the end and sell them like a collard green. So the whole plant. So at these stages, you can get value off of the planting.
What are some challenges that you face in your operation, and that you also think that the industry faces?
Labor. It's really hard. It's hard work. It is really fruitful work, but it's difficult to find good, consistent help that wants to stick around. And you have to be really physically fit to do this job and not hurt your body. It took us several years doing this and a lot of aches and pains to realize that we were doing semi-permanent damage to ourselves from being bent over for too many hours at a time, or you're not actually supposed to bend over the way that you would think. You're supposed to hunch down or change your position. There's 3 good positions for having to harvest things down low. And then you're supposed to stand up and stretch and do a, kind of just make sure that your spine gets straightened up for a good bit before you go back to that. But so we had to learn the hard way that at our age, in our later 40s, that we have to be really mindful, because once you suffer an injury, it takes so much longer to recover from that injury. Whereas if you are mindful about stretching and moving your body in different ways, you can prevent that injury, and that's much easier.
If a student was interested in pursuing a career like this, what advice and opportunities would you advise them?
I would say find people who are already doing it and either volunteer at their farm if you have an ability to do that, or work for another grower, multiple growers if you can. Really, plug yourself into the community that's available online of people who do this and offer even courses, or there's magazines like Growing for Market magazine that is a great resource. Yeah, and you can just find the people that are doing it the way that you would like to do it, and learn all you can from them.
And I think a good example that you just reminded me of is the dry farming techniques that we use when several years ago we thought we might have some water issues on the farm, and so it just happened to be that Oregon State Small Farms started doing dry farming trials, and so we participated in at least one season worth of trials at that time, and really started looking at how do you farm without water, without adding water to your crops. We learned a lot. We still employ dry farming techniques voluntarily, even though we do have access to water. And one of the cool things that I learned during that time was that there have been indigenous communities farming without water forever down in the desert. It's like growing food in the desert.
Without irrigation.
Without irrigation. And then I'm from Mexico originally, and there are indigenous communities in Mexico that just wait. They plant their crops in a certain way in certain regions, and then wait for the rainfall to come, and that's how they grow their crops. They don't control when the crops get irrigated. So there are certain practices like that are maybe a little bit more on the modern side, and some that are more on the traditional side. And so again, really just keep an open mind about what could be out there, because you just never know. Yeah.
Thank you so much for allowing us to interview you today. We hope you all learned something about what a career in agriculture can look like, as well as what a diversified horticulture farming operation can look like. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.